Hi, it's Christy of So to Speak, and welcome back for the second season of the Closet Series. Closet Series started back in April of 2020. Like you or people you know, I converted my linen closet here into my office, the Cloffice, as they call it. And from there, I had a seed of a spark of an idea of having conversations with local business owners as a way to help support them so that they could thrive through the pandemic, so that we could connect with other community members as we all were locked up in our homes, feeling very isolated. And so that the community members could then know more about the business owners in our town. They could support them in whatever way that they were able to. And from there, it expanded, and I started inviting people who were all over the country and all over the world who were doing and continue to do inspiring and incredible work, so that then you could tune in and you could be inspired to go back into our world and contribute your incredible work. It's all connected. So I could not be any happier to kick off the second season with a guy who's doing just that. Josh Pais, you may know, is an actor. He's in shows such as Ray Donovan. You may know him from the show Younger, movies such as The Joker, or one of my favorites is The Station Agent, which you could stream after our conversation. You will not be sorry if you haven't seen it yet. Even if you have seen it, rewatch. Definitely worth it. But Josh also is the founder of a company called Committed Impulse, which is dedicated to bringing high performance training to actors, artists, and entrepreneurs. Josh takes the woo out of energy and really goes head on with the science. So he helps all of us do what the majority of us do on a regular basis, which is live in our head, and he helps us shift to our body so that we could become more present, more aware, show up more honest, more truthful, more genuine, which is what we're all craving now more than ever. Whether you're in the creative field, or if you present on a regular basis or hope to present to an audience within your line of work, or if you just want a way to get out of your head and get into your body in a really, really fun way, you do not want to miss our conversation. Committed Impulse has an upcoming class called the Character Lab that begins October 21st. There's still time to register because there's still some room, and it's on Zoom. So you can do it all from the comfort of your own home, no matter where you live in the world. And it is super, super fun. I have taken it in person. I've taken it on Zoom, and it is just a thrill. It's an absolute thrill. It's this liberating feeling. So take it from me. Take it from Josh. Remember to watch The Station Agent. Josh will also be updating us on shows and movies that he has coming up as well. But for now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation.
I've been doing this work for 30 years, and every person that I've worked with, when you ask them what are the thoughts that go through their heads, it's all about the same, and it always boils down to some form of I suck. It's like, I'm not this enough, I should be further ahead here, if only this, that screwed me up, whatever. If I have any superpower, it's I can see where people stop themselves, and I can quickly undo it just from doing this for years. I like to think that I'm a pretty good actor, but probably my superpower is in the Committed Impulse world. And basically, very simply, by accessing, super simple, by staying connected to your breath so that you don't contract your breath, by connecting to your immediate environment, like literally seeing what's there. And I always say, like, see it how a dog or a baby would see it, so that you're actually seeing the shape, the form, the texture, the lightness, the darkness of what's around you, and being connected to the information in your body, like just the sensation, the movement, the energy, the emotion, the contraction, the expansion, whatever it is. It doesn't stop the I suck chatter, but it trains you to listen to something else. And by staying in your body and your breath and your immediate environment, it opens the creative channel. And then, like things come that are far beyond what we could just figure out.
Yeah, and you have such, because I was going to ask you, and I still am, just what tips you have for people who this is like brand spanking new, and they're like, wait, what? Look at the world like a dog. Like, where do I even start? Or you might have people
You look at the world like a dog. Come on.
they may be very excited, actually, like, wait, this is
Right.
my chance. I get that. But one thing just to help when people are like, where do I even start? I love how I associate you with this one phrase, which I think, it's 2 words. And it's one of the most, in theory is simple, in practice is simple. A lot of times things in theory sound so simple, but practicing, you're like, but this one phrase I feel like is super aligned. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
What is it, Josh?
On 3, ready? 1, 2, 3.
I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah. So, in my classes, I'm teaching on Zoom now, of course, but, also in my live classes, anytime that anybody checks out, so like you're engaged with what's in front of you, and then all of a sudden, you're shopping, at Bloomingdale's, and you've left this, or something happens and you start reflecting back, whatever, basically going to the past or the future or some imaginary version of that. Not that that's bad necessarily, but as soon as you're aware that you've left, I have people say out loud, I'm back. So there's a period of time when you're engaged, and then there's a period of time where you've left and you don't know you've left. Like you're fully checked out in a mental drama or something. And then there's the moment that you realize, whoa, I just missed all the action that was happening in front of me. And as soon as you're aware that you've left, I have people say out loud, I'm back. And the more that you can train yourself to stay right with what's actually in front of you, the impact of that is tremendous. I mean, for actors, for presenters, for coaches, for anybody that has to interact with other people, if you leave the action that's happening in front of you, it will just spontaneously make the person or audience that you are with leave as well. And the extent that you can stay with the action will keep the audience, and we all have an audience, regardless of our profession, it will keep them there. And if we disconnect from our body, from just a simple connection to our body, for actors, let's say, or public speakers, if you disconnect from this, then they will disconnect from the content that you're delivering.
So if someone is presenting to a board, if someone's presenting to has to have a difficult conversation with their direct report, it's so easy to go up here. Right. But the more this is what I love, is that the more we practice it in low stakes, and you have such a great, genuine perspective of let's party. You look at it like it's exciting versus terrifying to uncertainty, which I feel like is such an invitation for people to look at it from just a different vantage point, that this is actually accessible all the time. And there's major power in that, between, not over.
Yeah.
And it transcends acting. Like you had said, I was listening to one of your interviews, and just what you just said was something I jotted down, which is, to the extent that an actor is in their head is relative to how much the audience will be in their head. Yeah. Just what you said.
Yeah, because we're all highly intuitive beings. Mm-hmm. And if somebody checks out, it almost, I think on some level, can very slightly create a sense of threat, because all of a sudden that person's not there, and it will lead them to leave as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important just to look at like what, you said, like you're in a board meeting, you're, pitching something. it's important to become aware of why you go into your head. And not because you should analyze it, but basically what tends to happen is when you put your ass on the line, put your ass further out into the world for everybody, there's going to be an increased level of body sensation. Maybe your heart will pound faster. Maybe there will be more energy swarming throughout your body. And part of what committed impulse is to, well, the standard notion is when you're feeling this, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling nervous, that you should try to do like your breathing technique, your something to get rid of it, because we've all been taught that those kind of sensations are bad, especially if you're in a public, situation where you're presenting. That's completely false. But the part of the work is not to manipulate what our experience is, but to increase our tolerance for our full experience. Because if you can increase your tolerance, even when your heart is pounding, and stay present, stay engaged, it's like, that's mighty. And that's so engaging to watch and to listen to. And so, we just have to recognize that culturally, we're taught in the subtlest way, and I think this is the biggest myth of our time. It's constantly being delivered that there's good sensations and bad sensations. It's so ingrained that it's not even seen. And as long as that belief system is operating below the surface, then if you happen to be feeling the good stuff, things are okay. But when you happen to feel the bad stuff, then you're going to suppress your body, try to disconnect from it. And as soon as you disconnect from your body, your attention goes into your head, and then you're listening to how you suck. So basically, the options are to stay connected to the intensity that's happening in your body. And sometimes it is intense, but it's just movement. And to stay with that, or to listen to how you suck. I say stay with the energy, because it's really creative fuel. It's not bad. There's no sensation that's bad. It's built into our DNA to feel all this stuff. That was a rant.
No, it made from this perspective, it made so much sense. And it actually led into something that you had said in classes, but you also, I heard in an interview, was, can you just speak to the length of time that if we honor the feeling, people get terrified that and I'm projecting, but I also think, just from coaching too, that if we actually give into it, it's like the abyss and we're never going to come back from it. So can you just share your... Yeah.
So if you connect fully to the charge that's there, the emotion that's there, the nervousness that's there. And by that, I mean fully connect to what is the actual experience, let's say nervous. Like for a lot of people, it might be a chaotic movement, typically in the upper torso. Not for everybody, but that's like a common. And if you fully connect to that and breathe into it and in a sense, welcome it, it will shift in 7 to 12 seconds. It'll shift to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that needs to be our guide track to when we're working with or in front of people. And what's disturbing about that is, from our mind's point of view, you're out of control. But from your body's point of view, you're in control, because you're honoring what's actually there. And your creativity is in your body. Your brilliance is in your body. We think it's all like thought generated, but you stay in your body and like the most amazing stuff will happen. Of course, if for some, this might be an insane leap of faith, and it is. But it's, that's where the magic is. That's where the brilliance is.
So why do you think, from your perspective, that we are culturally trained to not do what you're saying?
I mean, it could be an extension of, a Freudian perspective of like that if there's an emotion, that it requires analysis and figuring out, and where did it come from, and is it connected to this in the past, or that, or or what somebody did to you. Not to say that there's not value in that. However, if you stay connected to what's happening in the moment, like you can feel frustration and then sadness and then calm and then joy. It's like it happens really quickly.
Mhm.
And if we analyze it and are constantly trying to fix something that's, may not be broken, then we're constantly, we feel something and we feel like we have to process it, and I think also maybe an extension of the New Age movement, which I was, got really into, but possibly an extension of that. Part of that was to get to the zone, to get to like this perfect place, and then you're ready. But the truth is that we're chemicals, atoms, in a constant state of movement, and you might be in that little zone, a slice of the pie of your full experience. But then if you're not in that zone, then it's like something's wrong. You've got to fix yourself, and then you try to, do all kinds of things, which are basically suppression. And again, once we suppress the charge that's there, we're going to be in our head.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing and I say simply, it's more a practice to make it simpler, but almost be objective to what's happening. You do that in the course too. You have us kind of stand and do a body scan in your own way, in your unique way.
Yeah.
But it does take us out of our head, so we don't get as stuck to it,
Yeah.
so we don't get wrapped up and tangled up into it. I had the honor of being in person doing the course with you, but then I also did it online. And anybody who's doubting the impact of it transitioning online, don't even question it. I was on Zoom with coaching for the entire day, and then 4 hours, 3.5, whatever it is, with you guys flew by. So you're not going to get zoomed out fatigue. It's incredible. And I just remember that from doing last October online with you guys, I had a moment that I shared with you in the class about having this moment with my daughter where I was feeling really vulnerable and I started getting frustrated. And I remember I was like taking ice out of the ice maker, and I thought of you guys, and I just was like, you are rushing past feeling sad right now.
Right.
Feel sad.
Yeah.
Be okay with feeling sad. And she and I had an incredible moment, and and then it turned to joy. So it's a life lesson.
Yeah. And with sadness, like it's such a rich, beautiful experience if you don't fight it. Mm-hmm. And I find that if I'm feeling some sadness, I'm feeling it right now, actually, but if I'm feeling some sadness, it's also kind of an opportunity. It kind of almost forces your nervous system to slow down, and you can almost see in more high definition. You can almost, like, if you don't fight it, and exactly what you said, if you fully connect to it without adding any drama or analysis to it, it will be rich, and then it will shift into the next sensation very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is too, and this is kind of my theory on it, there's so much to it why we're not present, but I do feel like it's so intimate It is one of the most intimate things to be present. There's no armor, there's no defense. You're not thinking of a rebuttal in your head.
Right.
So it's easy to go to your head. It's like a nice scapegoat to go to your head. But when you're fully present, there's no armor up physically, emotionally. So can you just speak to how people can strengthen that possible fear of the feeling unarmored or
Right. Yeah. I mean, one thing is also like, I don't think we should look at presence as an ideal state. It's not really a state. It's just a connection to whatever is there and a connection to what's here so that this is louder than this. Like that's my definition of it. So even if you felt closed off, let's say, and you connect to that actual experience of being closed off, like let's say you feel closed off here, like when you feel like armored up, like even connecting to that armor is presence. So it doesn't look like anything, but it's, and it's not, if we can let go of that, there's no ideal state to be in order to do our work or live our life. It's like, then things open up.
so there seems to be, and if I misunderstood you, interrupt me, but work with whatever you got. So if you're frustrated, don't try to be calm for the scene. If you're overwhelmed, and you have to be happy, don't try to be happy. They both can coexist, which I love that idea that everything can coexist. Then there's the idea of the system you created of inner atomics.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you're frustrated, let's say in life, you're frustrated and you have to present in some way. And how can you use the frustration versus you're not talking about showing up being like mad as hell. Maybe you are, but
No,
how do you,
but
yeah.
okay, so much good stuff in there. So one thing is just say with frustration. Frustration, it doesn't mean you have to like spew and tell everybody, I'm so frustrated right now, but it's like there's frustration is a pounding charge if you really feel it. And it doesn't mean you have to you have to exercise that with an O. But it's like that charge, if you just use that charge, it can just catapult you into whatever you're doing if you don't hold it as good or bad. So that's one piece. So the inner atomics are a set of, it's about 24 tools in a sense that are designed to alter and shift the energetic patterns in the body. And they're really designed to reveal parts of you by accessing your imagination, which is in here. And so the reason I first came up with developing these was starting with actors. Like if a director says, if you're feeling like super chill, like, hey, yeah, okay, and that's kind of where your energy is just kind of in a little flow and, and the director says, this guy is super powerful, super driven, pushes his energy all over people, dominates people, then how, then the question comes up, like, how can you do that and be absolutely truthful so that you're speaking from exactly where you are? And so the inner atomics are tools to, in a sense, you have your chemistry and these add in another level of chemistry that will send you in a trajectory. This may be so, maybe we should break it down a little bit, but that's kind of the philosophy behind it. You want to alter the energetic patterns in your body, which alter the way that you see and alter how you behave,
Yeah.
your behavior. I mean that more as actors than, how you're behaving. Now for, like, let's say public speaking, like, let's say, by simply, if you are feeling, so in your head, you can't even like face the audience, because it's like you're afraid of being overwhelmed and feeling so much. Like, just one inner atomic is just like increasing your connection to the earth as you're standing there. So it's just rooting down from the bottom of your feet into the earth, maybe 10 feet down below whatever building you're in, so that it will give you like that stability to be open to the unknown, because we want to be open to the unknown so that we can actually play and communicate with or work with whoever's in front of us.
Sure.
I mean, another inner atomic is, with that example of like somebody who's driven and forceful and is just literally connecting to your skeletal structure, like to feel the skeletal structure in your body and to let your vision be very specific. So you're looking at one spot or another spot. And if you just, people that are listening, if you just do that right now, you look at one spot, breathe, feel your skeletal structure, and then you go to another spot and just feel your skeletal structure, something begins to shift, and then in class, like, we physicalize that by sending energy, outside our body in different ways to just increase that. And the inner atomics also increase your creative range because it opens up areas of experience that, that you may not be open to. And that also builds your ability to increase your tolerance for whatever you might feel.
Totally. Like, so you're just nailing so many things. That itself is so relatable. Like the two you use, that's exactly it. And so I feel like it's, there's a huge component of embodied self-awareness that you use within committed.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's just, and there's a book, and I don't have it here. It's by Amanda Blake. The names escape me, but it's all about embodied self. The body is your mind, or something like that. And she gives examples of like so much of what you're saying to parallel with it. That if someone is needing to present and be more direct, they may want to do a kickboxing class or a boxing class, which is very much like the staccato kind of,
yes,
very deliberate, very direct. Yes. If they're going to a networking event and they feel their go-to is more rigid and they want to be looser, they may put music on that is like salsa, so they can move their body a little bit beforehand so that when they go, they're already loosened, which is so much of what I'm hearing you, and you do so much of that.
And, when you break down these inner atomics, and train with them for a little bit, like, you can just instantly make those shifts. Totally. It's like you get a whole set of tools that will serve you, kind of brilliantly,
And it's not, I'm hearing you say too, that it's not how you're feeling, to stay with what we were talking about, frustrated. It's not either or, it's they again coexist. You can feel how you're feeling and then incorporate what inner atomic you need for the situation that you're in.
It's just to send you in a trajectory.
Yep.
But it's not like a straight line, so you know exactly where it's going to go. It's a trajectory so that it's going to kind of catapult you in a certain direction. Very similar to what you were describing of like salsa dancing, which I could break that down into inner atomics, but that would send you in a trajectory.
Yes. And so also what I'm hearing, and I wonder if you've connected this too, is that we all have a sense of needing on the continuum of like certainty and uncertainty. So when you do, what I'm gathering is when you apply the inner atomics, it actually, when you say trajectory, I hear a sense of safety and certainty. so that we can leave space for the uncertainty. Like we all
Mm.
need a sense of that
Yeah.
stability. So if we're doing staccato, if we're doing the grounding, then we have that to go off of your public speaking, then we have that stability and we have the ground so we feel safe. So we're more like, okay, I'm not, I don't have to think there's a threat. So then I'm more open to answer questions from the audience that, or someone interrupts, I'm not as thrown because I have that sense of that
Yeah.
I created. Can you speak to that?
I think you spoke to it. I think, I think you said it brilliantly. It's the difference between, like a car salesman. Like I know, like there's times where I wanted to buy a particular car and went in and they were pitching and I was like, yeah, no, I want it. And they kept selling me something that I was already wanted because they couldn't let go of their patterning and their presentation that they had memorized and locked in, but didn't see me, didn't hear me, and ultimately I went to another dealership because it was just like, and the same, if you're in front of an audience, to take, if somebody's asking a question, like to have the bravery to surrender to that person as they're talking to you. It'll, like, the whole audience will love you,
Totally.
and to not, and to, if you have to ponder for a moment, like ponder and then and then answer it from there. But if we are, so locked into our presentation, like I've got it, I've nailed it, da 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 da, it's like, then if somebody coughs, like it can just screw you up. And we're also in this era that we're in particular, people want truth. They want an experience of you. They don't want to see you present what you think is the ideal version of you. It's just, it's not, it's just not what people want. People need, like out of like all kinds of political things and COVID. And so, over the past 15, 20 years, it's like people are like, they know if it's bullshit,
Bullshit.
they,
Oh
they
yeah.
know, they know, and they may not go, oh, this is bullshit, but they'll be like, they're going to back off.
Mm-hmm.
And, and you can't afford to have that especially if you have something, important content that is, that you believe is valuable for people to hear. You don't want to let your physical operating system cloud the ability to have people, nourished by what you have to offer the world.
That is so much of what you're doing, because you're bringing, and I love that it's online because you can reach so many more people all over the world. And it is nourishment. That's such a perfect word. It brings people together so that there's that safety of fully going for it, so that you could keep practicing it, and it transcends. Like you're practicing a muscle to strengthen it. You're strengthening it everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
there, it's so cool.
And it's fun.
And it's super
It's fun.
fun.
Like, it's all got to be fun. Otherwise, if you're not having fun, it makes it really hard to listen to you.
Yeah.
From my point of view, like I don't want to listen to somebody not
Josh said it
having
here
fun.
first. Yeah, exactly.
What's that?
I said Josh said it here first.
Right.
You have to be having fun for anybody to want to listen, and it's so true. We have a tendency, specifically with work, to think they're very mutually exclusive, like work and fun, and the fun and work combined. And even you talking about taking the pause to answer a question, there's fun in that because there is anticipation.
Totally.
Like it's just, there's something to be said. And it reminds me too of, you mentioned working with Charlie Kaufman, that he said he encouraged there to be breath in the scene.
Mm.
And it goes so much to what you were just saying about.
In a movie, it was a movie called Synecdoche, New York, and a scene with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And, you know, and I was like, I'm working with Philip Seymour Hoffman, like I have to get my line, you know, I have to really do this well, you know, and with Charlie Kaufman directing, who, you know, is somebody that I also, you know, respect immensely. And he just, you know, we did it a couple times, and then he just like let it hang out, like hang out in the scene. And then all of a sudden, like I could really see, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that connection started happening. And I allowed myself just to, you know, just to breathe in the scene, and everything opened up. And really, you know, the simplest way to integrate everything is just to return to the breath. Because if you return to your breath, it creates an instant connection to your body, and will make it much easier to connect to your immediate environment and get out of here.
And we hear it, go to your breath all the time, and it's a cliche, but for good reason, because it works.
Yeah.
So,
But it's to breathe, it's very often people use their breath to get away from their body.
yes.
Like it's like devil be gone, you know, I don't want to feel this. Let me do my breathing. But what, you know, what I teach is like you breathe to increase like all this, so that it's all fuel, and it's all impulse, and it's all charge, and it's all revealing you. Because we, you know, we have to stop this trained suppression, you know, under the veil of Zen or something.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. And we're almost manipulating ourselves. We are manipulating ourselves in that
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
So, I just want to dive right into committed impulse. I know we've been talking about it, but I'm wondering what had you even started?
It's a bit of a long story, but I'll make it really brief. You know, I went to very traditional actor training. It was Stanislavski based, which was very like something's, you know, you read the script, oh, something's happening in this scene. So then you should go think of, you know, like when your dog ran away when you were 6, and the agony that was, and then try to integrate that agony into the scene. Like that's kind of in a very simple way. Makes total sense. And that approach to acting was a massive transition in the evolution of actor training. But I also had an experience working with somebody that had just come back from working with this guy, Jerzy Grotowski, in Poland. I'm trying to make this short, but it was like this, it was a very intense kind of physical training that pushed me beyond my mind, and all of a sudden opened up like spontaneity to me. And then when I was in my acting scenes in school, it's like I didn't have to do all that. Everything was just available to me. And so that led me to go on a 2-year journey, like training with people from all over the world, because I wanted, as an actor, to be able to rely on being spontaneous. I wanted it to be not something that was like, you know, a fluke. I wanted it to be like, how can that be something tangible? And so that out of that training, out of like working with so many people, I was in a theater company in New York called Circle Rep, and they said, why don't you teach some of the actors in the company what you've been doing? And I said, well, I can do it as a director. I'll do it as a director. And so I did that. And really from that, the deal was every 3 months we had to show our, you know, where we were in this process of exploration. And then from that, you know, NYU saw what I was doing and they asked me to teach. And I was like, I'm not a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher. It was never, you know, but it's more and more people were like, can you teach? And then finally I was like, okay, you know, I'll give it a shot. And, you know, and it's turned out to be like a great passion. And, you know, by doing movies and TV and then also teaching, it's like just been a great exploration in my development as an actor, but also like, you know, supporting other people and business people and entrepreneurs, you know, so it's been just something that was kind of meant to be, I guess, because it was not, I'm still surprised. Like when I start a new class, I'm like, I'm the teacher, it's like, what? Um, but so it just came out of exploration. And, my father was a scientist, a theoretical physicist that worked with Einstein, actually. And so I do have like a science, I almost see it as a laboratory. Like how can I deliver this faster and faster so that people can be free of whatever is getting in their way? And so it's just like it's a laboratory.
Yeah, and it's such an I love how it just so organically surfaced in a way. I mean, there you kind of
Totally.
flowed with it, and you're leading, beautiful segue by the way, because you're leading to my
Thank
next
you.
question,
Okay.
about you having that beautiful merge of science and art in your upbringing, because your mom
Yeah.
is the artist and your dad's
Yeah.
science. So how much of an influence has that been on your life?
Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Like my mom, like she was just create, whatever, make art. And she was a painter and a poet. And my dad, was a leading, he worked with Niels Bohr and Oppenheimer, and he was just like at a very key element, time in physics. And I mean, I can tell you just very quickly that how when I was 6 or 7, something he told me really spawned later what committed impulse is. And very quickly, I understood what other kids' dads did, like some, growing up in Alphabet City in New York, I knew like some of the dads were drug dealers, some of the dads were bus drivers or whatever, just normal kind of dad jobs. But my dad would be doing these massive calculations on these blackboards. And so I was like, what do you do? Like, I felt like I had to confront him. And he said, do you see this table that you're sitting at? And I was like, yes. And he said, you see your knee? I was like, yes. And he said, the smallest part of this table and the smallest part of your knee are the same things, and it's atoms. And he said, that's what I explore, the building blocks of the universe. And then he kind of head out the door, and I was like, what? But, cut to me like getting out of acting school and starting to audition, and it being a disaster because I was so nervous and so anxious and so in my head. And I remembered, that story of my dad saying, basically your body is atoms. And once I started to actually feel the charges that were there, then it took it out of being good or bad or like appropriate or inappropriate. And then from that, I started, working steadily and doing film and television, my whole life. The past 2 months, I've been working on this new Hulu show called The Dropout, which is coming out in the spring. And just, it's about Elizabeth Holmes, the woman that came up with the Theranos device, who's on trial right now about the blood, a drop of blood can. And so it's such an awesome series. Amanda Seyfried is playing her. So that's been a blast. And I have a couple other movies that are partially finished that are on their way. So there's that. And then the next course that I'll be teaching is called Character Lab, which is all about, it's open to actors and non-actors, but it's a full deep dive into all these inner atomics and how using them will open up your creativity and give you, for non-actors, it'll give you ways of living in your body that you've never experienced before that will be incredibly freeing. And for actors, it just gives you incredible tools to create any character, because the inner atomics encompass all of human behavior. Like you can generate any form of human behavior using these inner atomics, and it's completely spontaneous.
And I'm going to piggyback on what you were saying too, for actors, definitely. And for non-actors, it's a huge, I notice you keep going like that. So I keep seeing like this rainbow. So it's like all these different colors that bring up the ability to be more empathetic. You're able to understand and relate to people on such a literally a visceral level because you're
Yes.
shifting your energy yourself.
Yeah.
So being able to connect with people like that, especially now, is so essential because you
Yeah.
speak about the truth that we're all wanting, and that, you know, I often say that we smell inauthenticity, we
Yeah.
smell bullshit. We're like,
Well, we're looking for
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's like probably the first thing that we're going to,
yeah,
is this bullshit or not bullshit? Like
yeah.
that'll be probably one of the first, and then it's like, am I safe? Am I not safe? Is this
Yep.
bullshit? Is it not bullshit? Okay, it's not bullshit and I feel pretty safe. Like then a connection starts to happen.
Bloodhounds for bullshit. That's what when you were sniffing, that's what I was sensing. We're
Yeah.
bloodhounds for bullshit. And yeah, and the course online, again, can you just speak to people who may be hesitant to, maybe they've always wanted to take an acting class? This is a bit different. I feel from experiencing it live, in real life and on Zoom,
Yeah.
that the impact is equally as strong, although
Yeah.
slightly different. Can you just speak to anyone who's hesitating doing this online?
Well, first of all, feel what the actual experience of hesitation is. Like I would just say, well, instead of just calling it hesitation, like what do you actually feel? But even hesitation shouldn't, the physical sensation of hesitation shouldn't stop you from taking action. If like you want to do something, having like maybe a little clenched up feeling here doesn't mean that you need to wait until that's done to then take action. And I really understand that the hesitation for doing what I teach, and everybody, like in the first class, they're like, I'm so scared, because it's kind of taking away the veils of, that you've found to operate in, which often are not really serving what your potential is. So I understand the hesitation. And in terms of Zoom, I had no idea the power of having teaching online would be. Like, I had no idea, but it's like, in a sense, there's an intimacy because it's like a close up, and it's been amazing teaching on Zoom, like far beyond what I thought it could be. Plus, you don't have to travel. You just
Totally. And you meet so many people from all over the world when
yes,
you're a participant, so that you're learning from so many different cultures. But also, I would think for specifically, well, not just actors, but anybody who wants to do any on-camera work,
yeah,
like it's built in. That's a built-in bonus.
absolutely, yeah.
No.
No, it's key for, and that's the way, that's how we're communicating more and more. Certainly through business. It's like it's all, in these boxes, and people feel you if you're there or not. You can't trick people.
You can't, and you also
Maybe for a minute, but not, not for an hour.
not for an hour. And there's also a different sense of what energy you need to bring on. This is just coming to me now, but if you had any thoughts on the different amount of energy that you do need to bring on camera versus in real life. It seems to be a bit more on camera.
I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. I think for me personally, if I see people on camera that have like amped themselves so up and they're like, ah! Like that kind of energy, I find it like I can't even, it's just, for me, I know some people like that. I mean, if it's genuine, if somebody is genuinely feeling that in that moment, like that's one thing, but just the hyped up, like this is good, is, I find it not, I feel like they're manipulating themselves to manipulate me, and there's like nothing to hang on to. And I think just there's so much energy in any sensation that you're feeling. And if you just let that latch onto that and let that be your creative fuel, that's, you know, that's what's interesting to me, you know, and that's, yeah, that's my jam.
Well, Josh, thank you for hopping in the closet. And it's such a joy. When people want to hear more about Committed Impulse, where can they go?
Just go to committedimpulse.com, and there's a free first class that you can just listen to. Yeah, and I have classes going, you know, throughout the year. A lot of times I'm, you know, filming, but when I'm not filming, I'm teaching. And there's also an online course, which is phenomenal, which, you know, you would have access to 24/7. And there's so much, like, it's changed so many people's creative lives and business lives, just getting that content.
Totally.
So,
Great newsletter
if
too.
it feels like a something you want to come do, come on.
Let's party with Josh.
Let's party. Let's party.
Sign up. It's a great newsletter. A lot of people have newsletters out, but yours is one that I open up all the time. It's short, it's to the point. You have great stories. You had a great bit from Jack Nicholson a week or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was just, it was so great to hear his voice again, because I feel like we haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
My pleasure.